the material. They trawl through each of Hindley's letters to her mother and study the photographic negatives. A problem they face in establishing whether the dog picture, or any other, is a grave marker is that the Moors murderers communicated through messages written in a secret code. These were hidden in letters between them and copied into Myra Hindley's poetry notebooks. Police asked GCHQ and independent codebreakers to help. But although the code is cracked, the messages they find are meaningless to anyone other than the Moors murderers. There's little chance of Ian Brady helping the police, and Myra Hindley is dead. But why did she take the secret to her grave?
She needed to get out. She was really very distressed and upset by being in prison. And to do that, she had to convince people that she was either all right, rehabilitated, or was never there and it wasn't me, as it were. She's got to portray herself differently from the way in which she's being seen.
Myra Hindley worked hard to change the way she was perceived, becoming one of the first prisoners to study for an Open University degree. She also befriended Lord Longford, took up knitting, and learned to play the guitar.
Kilowatt was an aging con of 65 who stood a chance to stay alive and leave the joints and walk the streets again. As the time he was to leave drew near, he suffered all the joy and fear of leaving 35 years in the pen. Then on the day of his release, he was approached by the police, took him to the warden, walking slowly by his side. The warden said, "You won't remain here, but it seems the state retainer claims another 10 years of your life."
This song won a prison arts prize called the Koestler Award.
23rd of January 1977. Dear Ma'am, I'm enclosing £3 with this letter and your birthday card, love. It's part of my Koestler musical prize, and I want to share it with you. Spend it on something nice for yourself. Have your hair done, or get yourself a blouse or something.
But we'll raise the prisons to the ground. Help us raise the prisons to the ground.
Her new image convinced some. In 1977, the BBC screened a programme asking whether Myra Hindley should be paroled. She viewed this as an important moment in her struggle for freedom.
11 years ago, Myra Hindley was found guilty of the murders of 17-year-old Edward Evans and of Leslie Ann Downey, who was 10. Like Ian Brady, with whom she'd stood trial, Hindley was sentenced to imprisonment for life.
Dear Ma'am, I have decided to agree to the BBC programme, as it will deal with the question of parole. There will be 4 people arguing for parole for me, and 4 against.
Yes, well, my impression of Myra Hindley, when I first went, I didn't know what to expect because all I'd read was inflammatory reports in the newspapers. When I met her, she was very different. She was tall, slim, attractive, quietly spoken, sensitive person, reads a lot. And, you know, I don't like this expression, an angel, because, I mean, she's a very nice person at the moment, and I'm certain if she's let out, there's absolutely no risk at all that she'd ever, you know, molest a child in any sense at all.
I had to hear the tapes of my daughter, and I never heard Ian Brady. It was Myra Hindley on that tape with my daughter, not Ian Brady. I had to listen to that and identify the body.
Dear Ma'am, I've just bought myself a caftan, which I saw advertised in the Sunday Times magazine. It's really nice. Indian cotton, lovely and long, with a high neck and nice-shaped sleeves. Oriental type. It's comfortable to groove around in after a shower, instead of having to get dressed again.
Myra Hindley continued to deny any involvement in the Moors murders. But in the mid-80s, Ian Brady told a journalist that there were another 2 bodies buried on Saddleworth Moor. The police reopened the case, and this time Myra Hindley decided to begin confessing. The information she provided over months of searching helped locate the body of Pauline Reade. She returned twice to the moor to try and help find Keith Bennett, leading police to the area where he disappeared.
I couldn't live with a burden of guilt anymore. It wasn't just a sudden decision thinking, oh, I better do this and I'll get parole in 1990. On the contrary, I told the police I wasn't applying for parole. It's widely believed that Brady, I confessed because I knew Brady was on the verge of, whereas on the contrary, I confessed and he wouldn't until the July, until after they'd found Pauline Reade and until he'd seen me on Saddleworth and knew that I was not messing about and I was going to where the areas of the graves were, and that's when the police began to get rambling garbage off him.
He would have kept a very close eye on, through the papers, what was going on with Hindley. So almost perhaps as a retaliation, in order to recoup one's power and omnipotence about knowledge and what had happened, he assists as well.
Brady also returned to the moor. Police notes show he strode rapidly to an elevated outcrop from where he could survey his favourite area of moorland. But then he appeared to become confused. After returning to his cell, Ian Brady showed detectives his collection of pictures taken in the area where Keith Bennett disappeared, images he got from Myra Hindley's mother.
It's just possible, knowing the sorts of temperament of people like this, that Ian Brady was on the moor and checked the site without letting on, as it were. So he's got his last, possibly the last body still in place.
Defeated, the police called the search off.
I would try to deter any would-be well-meaning amateurs coming up here, because what we've done expertly, and it's all been properly logged and recorded. And that's important, should we get any further information in the future. To go onto the moor, given the type of terrain, you could damage very easily any grave, and it could be lost forever.
In order to understand exactly what the police had done, Keith Bennett's brother, Alan, asked to see their search records. He told me he was astonished at the response.
I was expecting like a map of the area, with gullies, even highlighted or something, you know, just to say done, done, done. When I went back and asked for these plans, he said he didn't have it. There was no such thing. I went to see Peter Topping several times, just to ask him things that, you know, doubts had in my mind at the time, you know, just asking him, you know, if he believes Keith's still there, you know, if he believed, you know, if he had more time, could he have found Keith? He said he believes he's still there to be found. Well, they could have missed him by a couple of feet. I mean, even at one stage he said, you know, someone could stumble across his body. So, you know, I thought, well, I'll make sure it's, you know, if I can, I'll make sure it's someone we know, or someone in the family who stumbled over his body.
Over the next few years, Alan and a team of volunteers searched the moorland, digging down to the bedrock, but with no success.
But Brady seemed to think all this was either narrower or wider, you know, than it was when he was here. But I don't think it changed that much.
In desperation, in the mid-1990s, Alan wrote to Myra Hindley and went to see her in prison. She offered to help, but yet again failed to mention that she had supplied pictures to Ian Brady. The priest who took her final confession maintains that Myra Hindley's desire to help was sincere.
I think she genuinely wanted to help find him. She'd met his brother. She was very impressed with his brother. And I think that meeting was the key almost, because I think suddenly she met someone face to face with whom she had created this sort of havoc, you know. I mean, she had destroyed their lives. When she met